We're so pleased that you're here for this discussion, and I just can't wait to get started.
It's a pleasure. And it was fun to find out that my own student would be in dialogue with me, someone like you. And hello, everyone. If you're here, then there is definitely something about the Vedas, the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, wisdom texts, the source texts from India, ancient India, that have really laid the foundation for the present spiritual movement worldwide. When I came to America 2 decades ago, I realized that while the early teachers had brought the Vedas to America, some of it was very real and beautiful, and it seeded a whole movement of consciousness and a voyage towards personal evolution. There has been also a stagnation of sorts. There has also been a distortion of the truth into becoming a cult phenomena, magic thinking. And I thought maybe there is place for a book like Sovereign Self, and to distill the real essence of the Vedas and all these Vedic texts, that the essence was you don't have to die to become holy. You can lead a truly whole life, a fulfilled life, not a life of denial and sacrifice, but a life as a householder, life as a person in this world. You can have it all. The only thing is, are you the sovereign master of your own being? Is your mind pulling you away in 10 different directions? Is your ego whispering things that don't really help you? They hurt you. You re-traumatize yourself. You incapacitate yourself. You bind yourself in false beliefs. Are your senses not listening? They're like wild horses running in 10 different directions. And while you're on a pledge to eat healthy, you're stuffing your face at 2 a.m. at night. If this is happening, and this happens to all of us, different versions of it, it's the loss of sovereignty. You're no longer the master or mistress of your own kingdom. And the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, which is like a gospel of 700 verses by Krishna, whose birth date was celebrated all over the world yesterday. These 700 verses are just asking us, are you sovereign or not? Because you are a sovereign being deep inside you. In fact, your true self is not your mind-based shadow self, not your body that decays and aches and betrays you over time. But there's something, a presence inside you, known as Atma, or the boundless one. And once you begin to intellectually and then emotionally and heartfully connect with your own self, you just automatically regain authority over your own being. And then your mind, instead of denouncing you, serves you like a genie. And it's never too late to lead the life you are meant to lead. And I wanted to write about these subjects. I wanted to show Ishani and everyone that the Vedas are not just mystical outpourings for which you need 15 years of study of Sanskrit, and it's a bunch of religions of gods we don't understand. No, they are very practical. They talk about universal psychology, unity consciousness, potential of evolution of our own personality in a small lifetime, ability to take opportunities and ability to take misfortune and convert it into opportunity, and ability to take an opportunity that you've received from the universe and convert it into good fortune for the whole world. And I was like, where is all this teaching? Why has the Veda been reduced to one magic mantra, one quick 20-minute exercise, or one breathing exercise and a patented yoga sequence? Or on the other end, religious, fundamentalist kind of agenda with dogma. No, you got to worship the male god or the female god, and this is it, and not the other. And there's all this confusion. And I thought, well, If I write the sovereign self, people will get the benefit of deep wisdom to how to be sovereign. And I can get to share my own story of when I was not feeling sovereign and how I am leading a different life, a worthy life, a life worth waking up for every day. And countless people reading my books or studying from me also, whose stories I've included, whose real words I've included, say that just reading this wisdom unlocks chains that were binding them, that would put them into bondage of their own mind, their own expectations, their own foolish attachments, their own unnecessary toxic loyalty, or the conditioning of society. As they read page by page, it's loosening that grip, that toxicity is loosening the grip on them. And they thank me, and I say, you know what, I'm going to pass on the thanks to my guru, his guru, their gurus, and to that parampara or chain, due to which I am standing on my own 2 feet and feel good about it. No achy knees here, emotional ones.
That's wonderful. I love how you're talking about the Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. I think those of us that have heard, some of us have never really heard what these words are. Those of us that have feel like there's something mystical and in a cave and on a mountaintop or accessible only to a limited few. But what you're saying you've done here through your teachings, through this book, is reintroduce them to where they should be in the daily lives of people who pay taxes, go to sports games, have a job, our parents. I just love that you're bringing it back into the life that people are living. Can you say a little bit, Acharya Shunya, about this? When you came to the United States, you say you saw a disconnect between maybe the way you were exposed to this knowledge and then the way you saw it being brought out here. Can you just share with us a little bit about what your exposure as a child and growing and learning? How did you encounter this holistic wisdom?
I grew up learning this holistic wisdom sitting in the middle of my family, where my mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, they were all using this knowledge to be sovereign amidst life's curveballs and difficulties and sorrows and losses. And they were a pulse center of a lot of radiance and light, not only because it was a responsibility as a lineage to carry on the work of our ancestors, but the stuff works. And so, when you are feeling abundant, full, magnetic, people are attracted to you. So it's not like they set up a website and say, here, come to us, we're wise people. That they are wise was evident to the whole, extended community and across cities of India. And they lived this life. And I didn't see anybody shaving their hair or wearing monastic robes or becoming, cruelly changing their diet to the point of suffocating, or this whole monastic grip on the spiritual tradition really came into India much later. The entire Vedic tradition, for thousands of years, Indians were teaching the world how to make love, how to make babies, how to dance, how to have art. There is entire compendiums of knowledge on dance, sexuality, art, sculpture making, temple making, palace making, and even vehicles of transportation in the ancient days. So people wanted to live very full human lives, embodied divinity in humanity. There's no separation. And then we come to the Buddhist period. And Buddha had a very eclectical journey. I have great respect for him. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying this is what happened historically. And for his own personal reasons, he needed to come out of his family, sit under a tree, and then create sanghas of celibate monks. And this kind of took on the imagination, not only of Indians, but the whole world since then. And somehow we feel that if we need to grow spiritually, we need to first write the letter to our loved one to say, I need to go it alone from here. We need to separate from the family, hang out with birds who flock together, but probably they never really tell us they never become mirrors for us. We never really know what we need to work at. And we live in some kind of a unique version of spiritual journey, which is very distant from our real life. And I'm all for beads and dreadlocks, and if that's what gets you going. But I really believe that we have to return to the ancient way, the Vedic way, which was as you are, who you are, without needing to make drastic changes in your sexual preferences, in your food preferences, in a natural, organic way. You can still find that which is shining within you. It won't leave you because you had a bowl of chili versus vegan burger. It's not so. It's not going to betray you because you have short hair versus long dreadlocks. It won't commit you to sin because you didn't go to India for pilgrimage but went to Las Vegas. If it is that temporal, if it is that transient, if it is that judging, then it is nothing but human created stories of sin and goodness. Whereas the Vedas transcend to say you can never sin. You can only make choices which give you less well-being or more well-being. And no matter where you are, in a dark alley of your life or in a good place, you have that sovereign self, that eternal presence that can boundlessly help you become anything you want to be or become, and reinvent yourself again and again without shame, without fear. Because there is no fear anywhere except in your own dark, shadowy ego. Look around, nothing is fearful. Only you. It's your imagination. And it's the society's messages. Come forth and be radiantly spiritual on the world stage as karma chose you to be. So there are stories in the ancient text called the Upanishads of a priest thinking that he would become self-realized, but it was the prostitute who became self-realized and taught the priest a lesson or two. There was this fancy, spiritual, heroic being like a monk who had left the world thinking he has a cap on his anger and he got his rage under control. But really he didn't. It was all bypassing and pretending and pretentiousness and lots of lofty holy words in their being, thinking I know everything, I'm a pandit. But in that same story, he ultimately surrenders to the wisdom of a homemaker, a woman who's looking after her aging in-laws and her parents, and to a butcher who is dealing with the violence, quote unquote, towards animals, but he was really just making his life. He was not a cruel person. It was his way to earn his living. So I love how the Upanishads say that an awakened consciousness does not belong to your outer dress, garb, lifestyle. It really belongs to your deepest intention and your deepest understanding of who are you? Am I my body? Am I my mind? Am I in competition with all these other bodies and minds? Or do I share oneself with all sentient beings, the smallest grasshopper to that enemy across the room in the corporate meeting? Something within us is common. And if we were to sit face to face with the grasshopper and the corporate enemy, and we took a few deep breaths, we might become united again at a common place we never dreamt of before.
So you're describing, Acharya Shunya, a situation where there is this shining self and there are these clouds of covering. So then is it reasonable to say that the Vedic path is simply to keep thinking of all the good things about ourselves? Can we just keep thinking, I am whole, I am good, I am pure? Tell us how it works.
It doesn't work that way, because then you just create, it helps a little bit to think positive thoughts, but it just creates this positive layer over a whole mountain of negativity. And when the tire hits the road or rubber hits the road, I don't know how the English saying goes, but it collapses, doesn't hold up. So this new way of thinking positive affirmations, I don't want to downplay their value, but I want to say real wisdom means also taking into account what should we not be thinking. It's not just enough to think, oh, here's what we should think, because what we should not be thinking is a default way of the mind. The mind, I've explained that in the sovereign self, is like water in a sense. Water always goes from the higher to the lower depth. And so there is a tendency for the mind that If you don't correct what it's thinking, if you don't audit it, it will go to the lowest vibration, the lowest thought, the doubting thought, the self-betraying thought, the self-deprecating thought, the self-humiliating thought, the catastrophing and self-injuring thought. It can happen. So we have to understand these kind of thoughts, which I call as self-shaming, self-hurting thoughts. I have a whole chapter on thought management, and it's an ancient model not to be found in any other book because it's from my lineage. And so you recognize those thoughts and you go, I don't want to thank you. You've just come here to injure me. You're just walking around like I'm a mall, a mall of thoughts, and you can just walk around. Please sit on the side. So the moment you become aware and you go, oh, I don't want you, you're a self-injuring thought. It no longer has that power over you. Then from when we stop self-injuring, we often go into other injuring, blaming, shaming, judging, assuming, laying fault on some others, or assuming that they're talking about us, and all those things. You get angry. And these are blaming thoughts. And we want to be aware of those two and not be caught up between this injuring and blaming thoughts, self-shaming and other blaming thoughts. Then once you remove this residue, then there is room for what I call reality checking thoughts. Where am I? What should I be really thinking? Really? That blaming that person or blaming myself, is that my only go-to options? What's the reality? Maybe that person said something that doesn't sit well with me, but maybe it's time I sat with it. Maybe I sat with the pain that comes up with it. So these are thoughts when you're really looking at yourself almost like a witness and looking at what's going on, objectively looking at your own mind like a scientist, like we objectively look at the world. We look at a prickly thorny bush, and we don't become the prickly thorns. We just look at it and say, it's prickly and thorny. Similarly, we can look at prickly, thorny thoughts and say, aha, that's what's going on. We don't have to get ashamed because of them or angry or crazy. So these are reality checking thoughts, and I teach how to do that. And this is a Vedic way. So it takes a little effort than just thinking I am good, because we know deep down we've not cleared up the residue of shaming, blaming, doubting thoughts, injuring thoughts. Then we can go on to what I call dharma thoughts, or thoughts which really bring you into like valuing yourself. I also call them self-valuing thoughts. If the whole universe got interested in creating me, I really couldn't be a loser. Every atom has a purpose in this universe. Every leaf has a role to play. There is nothing random. I can't be random. And these self-valuing thoughts unfold dharma, your own cosmic duty towards yourself, your community, and the planet. And that includes self-care, self-respect. These are all dharmas, by the way. Being straightforward, being a straight shooter, aligning your thoughts, your speech, and your mind to enhance your own value. Sometimes if I have to write a difficult email to someone I love, and I'll still do it. I might think 3 days about it, but I'll do it because it's a dharmic thing to do rather than leading an inauthentic relationship. So these dharma thoughts, when we clear out the residue of blaming, shaming, self-injuring, other hurting thoughts, now we can go into self-valuing thoughts. And as your value enhances, the whole universe wants to have something to do with you. You become more attractive, more magnetic, more reassuring to the whole world. And finally, on their own, one fine day when you're sitting in your backyard or singing in your hammock or just being with your cat or dog, suddenly you feel free. You feel like your whole being is supporting you. Traumas have resolved quietly. And you feel like in a dignified way, very powerful and yet compassionate, creative and yet not anxious to prove that creativity, like restful in it. And all of this are signs of sovereignty, which I have explained. So it's a 5-step process. And this was the traditional ancient way of teaching. That's why it took years. I had 14 years of formal study alone. And I think I've been studying for 35 years or 40 years of my life informally. And so the book comes from these deeper teachings, not just a sea of every morning get up and tell yourself, I'm a child of the God and the sun and the moon. This works. It's better than thinking I'm such a loser. But if we want real transformation, we'll also have to diagnose what's the problem. If we want to get healthy in the body using Western medicine analogy, it's not just enough to pop minerals and vitamins. You also have to occasionally check your blood pressure or check, what's happening with your cholesterol or whatever. In Ayurveda, which I teach, we have a concept of what to eat and what not to eat. And it is said that if the person who is suffering has, and you have less time to talk to them, before you tell them what good things to eat, tell them what bad things they should stop eating, because they are just repoisoning themselves again and again. Where is the room to grow health here? So unless we weed out the poison of non-strategic thinking, ignorant thinking, habitual thinking, default thinking, and bring in intentional thinking, there is no permanent change. But I've had countless people within reading the chapter or talking with me or something, they just start changing and they write, Shunya, this works. I say, of course. You have a very brilliant mind. We just don't know how to use it. We don't know how to use the remote control. And the book will give us the knowledge of how to use our own mind for our benefit and the benefit of our loved ones and humanity.